Okay, so I've got my site at least beginning to be set up in AutoCAD. I can't help myself, I'm just going to draw one little last thing there so you can see when you have a curved part of your boundary that it's usually done with an arc or two. So here I'm just doing that, and that'll give me something that looks like a more complete boundary. A bit neater than that. So I'm just guessing, and if you have to do that, that's what you have to do. But if you go and take photos of the property, it'll help you work out any of these things if you can't from the satellite. Okay, so I've got the outline again that I want, and now I'll save that to make sure those changes come into Revit. And then in Revit, I'm going to start from scratch again, so with a new project. New under projects, I'm going to use the architecture template. Okay. Then. Okay, so now in Revit, I'll go straight to inserting my drawing. I'm going to insert into True North. So I've gone to the True North through the project browser, and then on the Insert tab, I'll go to Link tab. So then with the U drive, oh sorry, this is my drive, yours will be somewhere else. And in my file. Oh, sorry, that's the one I did last week. So this week it is, what's my new folder? Oh, sorry, I've just put it here. That's the one. Okay, so the current view only option, I'll turn on in this case so that it's again just only in this view. And oh no, sorry, we've got. So I showed you last week to turn that off, didn't I? Which way did I show you? With it off? Yeah, off because we're setting True North with it. Yeah, look, generally 2D things you want it on because it's more of a graphical overlay when it's 2D. But this is just the thing with True North. It's better to leave this turned on. Turned off, I mean, because of the way it carries through the other views. I'm going to rotate things, and I want it rotating in all the views. So it's just for things to set True North that you do it differently. But normally, the general rule of thumb is have that on for 2D things, have it off for 3D things. Okay, so the units as well, though, a little rule of thumb there. Set the import units if you know them, and I know mine millimetres. And that's it. So now I'll open that. And it's for the imaging. So there we are. You'll get this message. If you leave that option off, current view only, it won't bring in the image format. And that's not a bad thing here because I'm really more worried about the lines anyway from AutoCAD. So I want to get my initial starting direction and all those other things. Okay, so do you remember then what the next thing, what we're trying to do next? If I've got the drawing inserted like this, well, firstly, I'll just maybe ask you, True North. How do I know True North? It's straight up, exactly. It's come from Google Maps, right? Google Images or Google Maps, and satellite view. So that means it's just like most maps with north straight up the page, and I can indicate that for myself with a reference plane. And you might think, well, that's not that useful because we know which way is up. But I'm going to rotate everything now, and I'm going to take the reference plane with it. So I need to mark True North before I do the next thing, which is rotating. And so that's what I was trying to get at, just to see if you were thinking about the steps you should be going through, and why we're doing all of this, rather than just following through like a robot. I could have done this in AutoCAD, yeah, I could have, but I'm doing it in Revit for no reason. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is get an orientation that makes sense for my drawings. Okay, I'm going to be doing floor plans, and I want them to be rotated to match the drawing, match the page. So here I've got a building which is basically going to be right angled. I haven't drawn it that neatly, so it's not exactly right angles, but as you'd expect, a building like this is basically going to have walls that are, when they're horizontal, you'll have vertical walls that should be exactly at a right angle to those. And that means I can make, say, this bottom edge, that horizontal edge, or parallel to the bottom of my page, and then the left parallel to the side. Sounds obvious, it's the way you draw things, but you've got to think about these things when you're setting it up with a computer. And so with the rotate tool, I'm going to rotate both of these, but I've got the drawing selected. I'm just going to use Control and select the reference plane as well. And now with rotate, I'm going to drag the base point onto something that will set my baseline. So that line there, the end of that line, this is what I'll use. And then I'm going to snap to another point on that line, and this sets my base angle. So I'm picking that angle to start measuring, and then I want that angle to come around so that it's straight. So basically I'm taking that line, I want to make it go to 0 degrees. So I'll click now, and I'd probably go back to AutoCAD now and make sure that this was all straight before I went any further. And that's the point of having it linked. So you can keep going back to AutoCAD, keep working on it, and then it'll all come through into Revit. And that means you can use the tool that you need, whichever one you feel more comfortable with as well. You can use that to produce your drawings. Okay, so another thing, I'd be pretty sure this would be the area that I'm working with. So with those two selected still, the reference plane and the drawing, I'm just going to move all of this so it's centered a bit better within those elevation and section views. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, and so if it wasn't clear to you last week why we were rotating the whole thing, we had true north set the right way when it was first imported. Then we rotated it, and then had to put true north back to what it needed to be. And that's hopefully, when you see that process and think about the steps, hopefully going to be a bit clearer now. So again, if I go to Manage, and then under Position, Rotate True North, again, I can drag that base point onto the thing that I'm using to measure my angle. Click another point on that reference plane to pick up that angle. And now this time, this one needs to come to be vertical, so pointing straight up the page. Okay, so that's put it back to the way it came in. And it might look like I've just essentially reversed the steps. But I haven't. If I go to the other views, you'll see that they're still at the orientation I want my plans on. Okay, so that's basically the process. For the setup, I might just draw the boundary in now. So with Massing and Site, I'll use Property Line. On the Massing and Site tab, you've got the Property Line tool. And there, it's really, really important to use Create by Sketching. Don't try and enter the bearings. Okay, so Create by Sketching is the option. I'll choose. Pick Lines is the tool you can use in the Draw panel. And if you've drawn the lines in AutoCAD, you can simply pick them like this. There's an even quicker way if you want to try the options, but picking them one at a time is still pretty quick. So that's all I'm going to do. Okay, so I'll finish that. Okay, so I've got my boundary showing up now as a Revit object. So I'll just duplicate that view, duplicate with detailing. I'll rename this view and call it ground floor with image or with drawing. And then I can go back to the original ground floor plan, select my drawing file, right click, and then hide in view elements. And so now I've got just the things that I've added in Revit. And so as I continue and project things from the AutoCAD line work, so again, I promise you this is a very final thing, then I'll finish the video. If I say just use model in place to draw an extrusion, so let's just use walls for the category. I'll call it building. Building 1 will do. Okay, I'm going to use pick lines again. And pick lines you'll see is really going to be your best friend when you bring things in from AutoCAD. Okay, so it's telling me there's inaccuracies. I don't really care about that as long as it works. Yep, that's fine. So I'll just give it a better height. Okay, so again, when I go back to that original ground floor plan, it has just the Revit objects without the drawing getting in the way. But for any views, any other views where you want that to happen, you need to do the same thing. So you can see here, this is the 3D view, and the AutoCAD drawing, even though there isn't a lot in it, it's still there underneath. So again, if I don't want to see it in this view, I can always just hide in view elements, and that'll leave just the Revit things. And so this kind of view can be useful as well, especially if you've got a site where there are lots of adjoining buildings that are going to affect your property in a range of ways. Just doing a very simple block model like this and roughly establishing their heights can be a really good view to have, along with your site drawings. So the site drawings and the plans are still the most important thing, but these other drawings can be handy for analysis and other things like that. But anyhow, I'll just finish the video.